Hi everyone, it's Jane, and today I want to introduce Chinese Cinderella by Adeline Yen Ma. And so I will be talking. I will first be I'll give you a summary of the first 5 chapters. And throughout I will be interlacing the entire thing with questions. And so Chinese Cinderella was published in 1999, and I found it one day on my local library. I searched it up, and it has some amazing reviews on Amazon, and it is an amazing book. And I decided to immediately buy it. To borrow it from my library. I have read it, and I am liking it so much. And that's why I decided to do this book introduction. I've decided that this is a very good book that's worthy of a book introduction. And so I hope that you enjoy the first 5 chapters, and hopefully this encourages you to read on, because again, I've read Chinese Cinderella, and this is a great book. Now, if you want to read like the full biography of Adeline Yen Ma, then I recommend Falling Leaves. I'm not very sure what the age rating differences are. So Falling Leaves is basically her entire life. This is more like the life that she had as a child. I don't know if there's different age levels for both or anything. That's something that you should check out. But whatever the case, Adeline Yen Ma seems to be an amazing author, and not only seems to be, but she is, as I have read. And yeah, so this book, is a story about living in a family that doesn't really want her. It's also a very good introduction into a new culture, and it's an amazing biography about an acclaimed author. And so I hope that you enjoy it, and let's dive right in. Okay, so first, the book is set in autumn 1941. The Second World War has just begun, and China was under Japanese occupation. And I just want to point out, just before we talk about the book, that there is a very important this note right before the book that says, "To all unwanted children." And so I hope that none of you are unwanted, but this, I feel, is a really nice way to start off the book, because it really represents what this book is about. So I'll read it out loud. "I have always cherished this dream of creating something unique and imperishable, so that the past should not fade away forever. I know one day I shall die and vanish into the void, but hope to preserve my memories through my writing. Perhaps others who were also unwanted children may see them 100 years from now and be encouraged. I am imagining them opening the pages of my book and meeting me as a 10-year-old in Shanghai, without actually having left their own homes in Sydney, Tokyo, London, Hong Kong, or Los Angeles. And I shall welcome each and every one of them with a smile and say, 'How splendid of you to visit me. Come in and let me share with you my story, because I understand only too well the rankling in your heart and what you are going through.'" And so yeah, with that note, we will dive right in. So chapter 1 is called Top of the Class. So yeah, it's autumn 1941, and Adeline has just gotten a top of the class award from her school, right? And so here she she shows it to her Aunt Baba, who she's closest with. Aunt Baba lives with her and her family, and her stepmother now. And so she's closest with Aunt Baba because, well, they kind of have their own separate world. Like, everybody else doesn't really want her. And so yeah, when Adeline sees a picture of her grandparents, she asks if that's a picture of her dead mama and her father. And when Adeline began asking questions about her dead mother, Aunt Baba changed the subject quickly and told her to go wash her hands. And so afterwards, her big sister once told her that Aunt Baba and their mother used to be best friends, right? And they worked together a long time ago. And so, yeah, why do you think that Aunt Baba doesn't really want to talk about Adeline's deceased mother? And then we see why this book is a book about an unwanted child. Her big sister says to her, quote, "But then Mama died giving birth to you. If you had not been born, Mama would still be alive. She died because of you. You are bad luck," unquote. And that's kind of the sentiment that's shared by all of their siblings. And her parents don't really like her either. Nyang, her stepmother, is unfair to all the children that weren't that she didn't give birth to, and her father doesn't really pay attention to her. And so yeah, all of her brothers, and so here the Chinese way is just saying big sister, and then big brother, and then like second brother, and then third brother. So that's how I'm gonna reference them. And so they all blame her for causing their mother's death. And then Yang comes along. Yang is was a 17-year-old Eurasian, and so she was part Chinese and part French. And so yeah, her father really likes Yang. And they soon had a son and a daughter, fourth brother and a daughter who was little sister. And so now there's 7 of them. And one question I want to ask is, if you were unwanted and you were called bad luck by all of your siblings, Yang doesn't really like you, and your father doesn't really pay attention to you, how would you feel? Would you run away? Would you be able to endure it? Because her siblings definitely do not have a right to treat her that way, right? And so, yeah, would you run away or not? I wouldn't run away. I mean, that's kind of crazy, I feel, because running away, what would you do? You have no life. You don't have any money. You don't have a home. You don't have food. You don't get to go to school. So I mean, running away is a very stupid way of handling things, but enduring it, yeah, is very hard. And while we know that her older siblings are really unfair to their little sister, if you're one of the older brothers or big sister, would you be angry at her? Of course, it's not Adeline's fault, but still, right? While it totally wasn't Adeline's fault, big sister was kind of right. If Adeline had not been born, their mother would not have been dead. Of course, passing the blame down to her is a very unfair and cruel punishment, because it's not my fault I was born, right? Just as it's not your fault that you were born. And because of that, while it's very unfair, do you think that you was still in a very crazy, but in a way that doesn't really make sense, would you still not really like your little sister, even if it didn't make any sense? What do you think? And let's go on to chapter 3, called Nai Nai's Bound Feet. And so Nai Nai is her grandmother, and so her feet are very tiny, because a long time ago, Chinese people thought that small feet were pretty feet and beautiful feet, and so they would wrap her feet around with a tight bandage so that the toes would be crushed under the sole, and the arch is crushed, so it will remain small, and it's like very painful according to this book. Very very painful. And so, do you think that you will be able to endure your feet getting bound? And then we go on into the dining room, because it's time for dinner. And so all of them are sitting next to each other. And so immediately third brother takes his seat by her left, and he congratulates her on her medal, right? And so what do you think about third brother? Do you think he isn't all that bad, or do you think he is? Because according to her, yeah, all of her brothers think that it was all her fault and that she was bad luck, and they all blame her. And so do you think that third brother, do you think that he blames her, or do you think that he doesn't really mind? And do you think that Adeline will ever maybe be able to change one of her siblings' minds, or do you think that that's going to be impossible? I think that maybe it might be possible, though. As you read throughout the book, you will see the answer. And I won't tell you what it is. And when her father spotted the medal, he started joking with her, right? And he was happy and he was proud, right? And so she really felt very happy, because that was the only time when her father ever paid attention to her, right? And yeah, they barely pay any attention to her at all. Do you think that her father should pay more attention to her? And what about her father? Do you think he might secretly blame Adeline for her mother's death? Of course, you can't really like show it off, show a lot of it, right? But still, do you think it's possible? And if so, Adeline will be growing up kind of all alone. And if you were her, I mean, and how do you think she got out? Because she somehow got out, right? She somehow got her freedom, and now she's writing amazing novels. So there must have been something that happened. So what do you think that is? And when do you think it's going to happen? But after all the adults leave, the other kids grab all of her fruit, which is her dessert and her favorite treat, and they leave. The other older siblings, even third brother. And so, yeah, again, do you think that third brother or any of the others will ever be truly be on her side, or do you think that's an impossible dream? And so there's also this unspoken rule that Nyang's children are kind of more special and important than just the other four. The other five. Do you think that, yeah, again, that stinks, right? That isn't very fair. And when they grow up, do you think that they're going to become spoiled? And do you think that they're going to treat Adeline badly as well? Or do you think that they won't be a problem? However, like, this is kind of, I would say, discrimination, kind of, right? Against all of the older children, right? And this, combined with everything else, would definitely make Adeline feel miserable. And do you think that Yang will ever be able to be fair, right? Because, you know, she, it's obvious that, right, her children seem to be more important, right? At least that's like the unspoken rule, and she doesn't really pay attention to Adeline. So yeah, what do you think about this Yang character? Do you think that she's still like not all that bad, or do you think that she is bad? Because after Love Fairy Tales, I think that a lot of people agree that stepmothers are bad, and while that's of course not always the case, what about Yang? What do you think? And she will come up a lot in the book, so start thinking about this. And so chapter 4 is called Life in Tianjin. And so it documents how Adeline goes to school every day, and she's happiest when she's at school because nobody discriminates, nobody looks down at her. She's liked by her teachers and her classmates because she's smart and nice, right? They don't think that it's bad luck or that she brought down, caused her mother's death. But however, when the moment she gets out of school, big sister on their rickshaw, which is kind of a transportation where somebody pulls it along, big sister screams at her while they're riding the rickshaw back home and slaps her on the face just because she got a medal, and she calls her Adeline stupid. And so do you do you think that school will ever truly let Adeline get away from her family? Do you think it's possible that she can somehow escape because of school, like getting a scholarship? Or do you think that she's going to be stuck with her family? And if so, for how long? And then by the end of the term, it was time for prize giving. And at prize giving, she got a big award, right? But then she notices that she's the only one without a family who showed up for her prize giving. Even big sister didn't come because she had a stomach ache. And so, do you know this is going to be how it's going to be like for the rest of her life with her family? So this is a very sad story already, and yeah, again, not only with her siblings but with her whole family. Do you think that she'll be able to do you think she'll be able to get the attention of her family members ever, or do you think that that's going to be an impossible dream? At that moment, Japan occupied China, and yeah, Japanese rule was very brutal. One day, her father has to do business with Japanese people, and you know that was very stressful for him. And then one day he disappears. What do you think happened to him? He just went out to buy stamps, and he never came home. And so, what do you think happened? And right after that, a few days later, Nai dies because of I just want to check, from a stroke. And why do you think that Nai's death was so important? Why do you think, and so in this book, it's really described in detail. And so why do you think that is so important? So do you think that without another person to protect Adeline, her siblings would become even meaner to her? The rest of the family will exclude her even more, because her grandmother wasn't that bad to her if you read it. And so right now I'm just giving you a short summary, so you won't be able to like go as deeply as you will if you read the book. But still, yeah, do you think that they could become even meaner? And so what do you think is the really importance of Nai's death? Of course it's very important, right? Somebody died, but do you think that there's another big reason, and why do you think this is such a big plot change? Or do you think it's a big plot change at all? What do you think? Do you think there will be any implications on Adeline's or like the entire family's life? And then in chapter 5, it's called Arrival in Shanghai. And one day they're out for a drive. And it turns out that her father is alive. And he's waiting, because he was gone for quite a long time, like a year. And so it seemed like he was missing, right? Kidnapped or something, because there's almost no reason why he would not just leave home without any word and just disappear, not even telling anybody. That's very scary. But he's fine, and he already has a home, and he's already with Yang and everybody else at a very nice place in Shanghai. And it's an amazing, amazing place. And while you will read about it later, one thing I want to talk about is when in the house, when they're together, Yang enters, and so she's very sharp. Immediately, she, in a loud voice, she says, "Welcome to Shanghai," and she begins to tell them about the layout of the house. And she says, "Yeah, no friends over. You can't visit them at their houses, and all of you will sleep on the 3rd floor, and the 2nd floor is where your father and I and your younger brother and sister will sleep. That's like their spot. But everybody else just has to sleep on the 3rd floor." And so you have to come down at once when Cook rings the dinner bell, and you have to, and when you read it, she sounds very sharp. And as they go up, Big Brother mutters that, to her, that they're not separate people. She just says all of you, like they're like one unit. Why do you think that is? And do you think she looks down on them? Why? And from chapter 6 and on, chapter 6 is called The First Day of School, and it definitely gets interesting. I've read some confusing reviews that says that there's nothing really like fun about the book, but I have read it and I have enjoyed it so much. And again, it has great reviews, but even if it doesn't, it doesn't matter because it earned a great review from me. There's a lot of hidden gems out there, so just don't depend always on reviews. So of course they are a very big, they will tell you a lot of things about what you're buying, whether it's a book or any other product, but still, I advise not to like always look at the reviews, but definitely keep those in mind. So can you now see why this book is called Chinese Cinderella? But in Cinderella's story, sure, she doesn't live amazingly at first, but afterwards she has a happy ending. And so how do you think that Adeline will get a happy ending? I don't think there's going to be a prince that announces a ball. So what do you think is gonna happen? And are you ready for more? That's my last question, and hopefully the answer is yes. I'm still thinking about whether or not I'm going to do an entire series about it. It's definitely an amazing book. I hope that you keep reading and see find out what happens to Adeline later. Keep reading and have a great rest of your day.